So today we have two different computers that we will be building today, and one's using the Tough Gaming GT30 301 Tough Gaming computer case. Then we also have on the left, the right, the MSI Forge R3 Mag computer case. So what we have today is a MSI Pro motherboard with a Intel i3 with the heatsink. This is the heatsink. And right now we're going to put that on here, but I just want to get into a little bit explaining on what this is and how it works. So this is the motherboard. This is going to be how you control, what's going to be controlling all of your little components on here. And underneath of here is the CPU. I probably see it. That's it. So here's the heatsink that came with the CPU. You can get this off of Amazon, both of these actually, and for a pretty good price. But on this little heatsink, there is the thermal paste on it. This has already been used a little bit. So, but this is for my mom's computer. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this inside, and as you guys can see, inside the MSI Mag case, you see these six little things. I don't know what they're really called, but you have these little things. One of them is going to be real different from the others. That's because this one that's black is your ground connection. So if you didn't have this, you'll probably fry your motherboard. So now we're going to put that on and get this all situated. And before putting on the motherboard, make sure you put on the faceplate first. Because if you don't, you have to take the entire motherboard off and put the faceplate on. And that's not fun. So now to try and put this in, it's very finicky. So finicky. Alright, now that's on, what we're going to do is put on these certain screws. So this is the screw that we will be using. As you guys can see, it has almost like a little plate on the edge of it. So with these screws, we're going to tie this down into the case. That way it can stay in the case and have the good ground connection to everything else. Now with this, you will need a screwdriver, and you might need a smaller screwdriver, like a really small screwdriver, depending on what the case is and what the motherboard is. Because certain motherboards and cases have different types of screws that they use, and for the screws, it use like different kind of bits, like this one. For this one, I can actually use, and for this motherboard, which is really good, very fantastic. But just be careful not to screw it in too tight, because you will risk damaging the motherboard. And just so if you wanted to take it back out, you don't want to strip the screws. It is really hard to come out once that happens. And it looks like this ain't even going in. It's a little finicky process. It's like sometimes the screws don't want to go in, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, there we go. Got one down. And now we have 5 more to go. So when you guys see the motherboard, there will be these little holes. They're pretty special. That's actually where you're going to put the screws at, and you also have to line that up with those little pegs at the bottom. So for certain boards, there will be a certain amount of screws that you have to use, or like a certain kind of placement that you have to use depending on the case and your motherboard. But in this case, we had to put in this way, long ways. That way it can fit this computer case. Yeah, this is also really good if you have a magnetic screwdriver with like the magnetic bits. That way you don't end up losing any of the little parts. Now these screws should come with your, whatever your case is, your computer case, whatever it is, it should come with screws, but for just in case, you should probably buy extras. Okay, there we go. And we got one more. There we go. Now that's nice and secure, what we're going to do next is put in the power supply. So what we have with us is, for our power supply, is the Corsair 500, the VS 500. So it looks like this. And then we're going to put that right underneath on the opposite side. So just put this over, turn it around, get my phone out of the way. And then we're going to put it on to its side. That wasn't supposed to happen. So let me secure this next better. Sometimes these things want to work, sometimes they don't. I highly recommend buying a brand new heatsink, because the Intel's and like the factory issue ones aren't the best. With like better heatsinks, they can reduce the amount of heat that the CPU takes, which is really good for any like gamers out there and people trying to mine for cryptocurrency. Okay, now that's in, nice and secure this time. Now we can flip this over and put in the power supply. So the power supply goes in upside down, so like this way, it goes upside down. And what you want to do is you want to put this right here. And depending on your case, you might need to turn it upside down, just because for this case in particular, it has little legs on it. That way it can keep the airflow coming from the bottom. So if you have carpet, this case will be good for any carpet people, or any hardwood. If you didn't, you would have to do this on hardwood floors, because then your power source is going to start to overheat, and you don't want that. Now to safely secure this, I'm going to put this thing on here just to keep it in place. What that does, it just, again, keeps it in place. Just put this up. Put it right here. And for that part, we're going to use these screws. So you should have a total like 3 sets of screws. One of the screws is going to be for the motherboard. These screws are going to be for anything more external, so like on the outside of the computer case. Then you will also have like these other kind of screws, which like looking like this. So for this case, this is to tie down the tempered glass to the case. And that's really going to be helpful to have like extras, just in case you lose some. I'm looking for my screwdriver now. Thank you. Oh, I forgot to put the plate on. You don't have to put the plate on. It just depends on like whatever your case is. So this came off of my last case, and I just like to have it just to have it. There we go, that's in. I'm gonna tie this nice and tight, not too tight, because again, you don't want to strip it. But you want to keep it nice and secure. There we go. Making quick work out of this. Okay, now that we're done with that, now we get to move on to the other parts. So what I have with me is a RAM. So this is the Aegis DDR gaming memory. This has 8 gigs. And since this is for my mom, it's going to be more like for work purposes. So usually in a laptop, you will have, for older laptops, it will usually be 1 gig of RAM. Like, so if you had, for instance, a Intel i7, one of those older laptops, then it will have only 1 gig of RAM. If you have like one of the newer laptops, like for instance, trying to remember the name of it, but newer modern day laptops now have 4 gigs of RAM, which is significantly better. And you also want to make sure you line the grooves up with your motherboard. So I didn't line it up correctly. That's why I didn't go in. After I'm done with this, I'm going to switch to my motherboard to show you guys like all the cool things that you can put inside of here, because PCs are awesome. And it's so much better than any console or laptop. Okay, so now that's in there. What RAM does is it actually it gives you more speed on any applications that you have pulled up. So meaning any video games you play, I mean, you're not going, 8 gigabytes of RAM is not going to help you with any Call of Duty games or those high-end games. But for applications like running YouTube and a whole bunch of browsers, if you have like a whole bunch of tabs up, you're one of those people, this 8 gigabytes of RAM is going to really help to make everything much faster. So now moving on from that, what we're going to put in next is the graphics card. So This was my old graphics card. It is a RX 550. It's a pretty decent graphics card, but not the best when it comes to playing any high-end games like Call of Duty. As you guys can see, if you guys saw any of my my weapon builds, I don't play on the best graphics because this graphics card can't handle it. So this is going to slide in right here, inside of this part right here. On my motherboard, it's going to look totally different. It's going to be 2 of them because my motherboard is much more advanced. Okay, now it's in there. It should just sit in nice and flush. Just press it inside and make sure you lock it. That way it's in there. Then you also need to screw it back in. So we'll be using the same screws, these ones. And that will tie all this stuff together. So in the back, where I'm currently at, right here, we're going to tie all these back in. Just trying to find it. Okay, and that's going to keep it from moving anywhere. Give it a little support on the weight. It's a pretty light graphics card though. Okay, that's in. Sure. Alright, it's in. Now what we're going to do is move on to the little Wi-Fi connection. Where did I put it? It's on my lap. So this is your Wi-Fi adapter. With desktops, it depends on your motherboard. So certain motherboards have a thing called a Wi-Fi chip, which will allow you to have Bluetooth and connect to Wi-Fi without an Ethernet cord. So for this motherboard, it does not have a Wi-Fi chip. Instead, you just have to plug it in with an Ethernet cord or get one of these. What I have is a Wi-Fi adapter. So with this, it can do Wi-Fi 6, which is what we currently use. It is one of the more advanced Wi-Fi connections. Forgot. Okay, so I had to adjust this just because the motherboard is really small. Well, not really small. It's just small. So I have to take off one of these little plates. That way I can get inside this little area. So I just had to remove that, and where this is going to go is going to go inside this little area right here. You guys can probably see it, maybe not, but this will go right here in this little slot. And that's going to be where this is going to connect into. So that little piece is going to connect into that little slot. I'm going to put that in and get to work. I'm just being lazy at this point. I should have just taken off the antennas. So because it's in the most inconvenient spot ever, I'm going to have to do this last. So now we're going to get started on the power connection, which will be back here. It looks a complete mess, I will say that. And it's a lot of wires. A lot of wires. So these two wires are your fan connections. That's going to go inside of here to connect to the motherboard. And we'll do that later. What we're going to do is get all these fan connections and put it inside with the motherboard. And get all this other jumbo of a mess. All these other cords. While I start getting the connection process going. So just to start off, we're going to start off with this 20 pin. So on here, there is 20 pins. Where that's going to go is going to go inside and connect right here. So right here. And just connect. And it just snaps on. Very simple. What we have next is the CPU. So that's going to bring power to the CPU. Make sure that has power. This is like for overall power. This is for power for the CPU. And you're going to put it up here. And once you put it in, it just clicks. So no real force needed. Now what we have next is the SATA cables. So this is your SATA cable, which we're going to be connecting this into here, where this is. So this is to control any RGB lights. Like if you had light up fans or something that lights up, this is where you're going to connect it at. Now this looks like you will be connecting your fans here. You're really not. It's just to control all the lights, which is going to be what you're going to have control over up here. Oh man, pupper. So this is what we're going to connect it to. It says SATA. We're going to connect it right into here, like so. I have this in right. I didn't have it in right. And it just snaps on. Now this is your LED cable. This should already be hooked up into your computer case. But if it's not, it just comes down from right here, which is your main panel, where you're going to be hitting your power, restart, and LED for if you wanted to change the colors and stuff like that. It'll come out from right here, come down, and you just put it up here, where these little two pins are. These are the only two pins that you should see on your case. And now for the USB. So the USB is for all the USBs that on your main panel. Where that's going to go is it's going to go inside with the motherboard. Over here. Just move that out of the way. And through here. So you had to make sure that this side, because there is a certain side that you had to put this in on. So this side has a little groove in it. You just had to match it with the groove. And then it just snaps on like so. Alright, now that's done. We're going to start off with the HD audio. So the HD audio, depending on your motherboard, can change in different places. So for this particular motherboard, it is all the way at the bottom. So it is these ones right here. So what we're going to do is bring them from the bottom and pull it up through here. Now, it is also pretty important to have good cable management because you don't want to have a whole bunch of cables everywhere connecting to, like, who knows where. And that just slides on. It doesn't have any clicking on it. It just slides on. Now, here comes the hard part. So, the hard part is giving the main panel power. So, depending on what your motherboard's instructions are, because they are different for every motherboard. So these are your main panel's power. So it has reset, HD LED, power LED, pop negative. Yeah, it has all these stuff. So this is going to go right here for our motherboard, which is right here. And one here, just taking a look. So on here, it actually tells you, which is absolutely fantastic about this motherboard. So I'm going to turn this on its back because it just makes it easier. So, your main panel cables here. And what you want to do is just follow directions on, well, for this particular motherboard, what it has displayed. So, for us, we have HD. We have this one at the bottom. So, right here. It just slides on. Now for this, even if you do mess this up, it's alright because this is not going to fry your motherboard or anything. It just won't turn on. Power LED negative. Now if your motherboard does not have these directions on it, like directly on the motherboard, you're going to have to look on your motherboard's like the little guide, the instructions. You're going to have to look on your motherboard's instructions. And then you'll be perfectly fine. So no harm, no foul, even if you get it wrong. All you gotta do is just try and correct it. And my first time actually doing this, it took me an entire day to try and figure this out. So yeah, it's best to start with the bottom half first, then work your way up to the top. Okay, that's done. So now what we have next is, let me see. Okay, so now what we have next is to apply power, well, yeah, connect the power for both the heatsink and the fans. So for this particular computer case, it only comes with 3 fans. These were just fans I just put in. These came off of my first computer case that I shattered the glass of. So definitely be careful with the tempered glass because it does shatter pretty easily. And once it starts shattering, it just starts to explode afterwards. So now to bring this cord, which has nothing on it, you're going to put it up here where it says system fans, CPU fans, and like anywhere where it says fans at. That's going to be where you're going to get your connection for the fans. You also want to make sure you put it in this way because right here, there's like a little, it's like a little something right there, just to help it guide it. Okay, we just slide that on. And actually, that's just the wrong one. So just to take it off, you just really want to like kind of like wiggle it. That way you don't end up bending it when trying to pull it out forcefully. That's in there. And that's in there. Now your fans can come in any like different kinds of connections. Maybe it could be a 2-pin, a 3-pin, or in this case, a 4-pin. So for these fans, it's the 3-pin. For the CPU fan, which is this heatsink, it is a 4-pin. Now to find any other cords. Okay. Alright, so I don't see any other little fan connections in the motherboard. So some motherboards might have more, some motherboards might have just a few. No biggie though. If you wanted to put more fans inside your computer case, you just need to have a fan splitter. So what a fan splitter is, it is basically like one of these, but instead it's going to have like a little connection to one of them, and this one is going to, the beginning part of this fan splitter is going to be in one of the ports, and then it's going to split off into either 2 or 4. So the thing about a fan splitter is that from it splitting off, it's going to draw power. If you're using a 4 fan splitter, it's going to draw a lot of power from out of that one spot on the motherboard, which is not the most ideal way of doing things. If you had 2, that would be a great idea, because you don't want to draw you don't want to draw too much power from the motherboard and cause this to start overheating. Overheating slows down your computer really badly, and it makes everything even worse than it already is. So that way we can still have optimize as many fans as possible. But because this is my mom's and she wants it for work purposes, you really don't need all these fans. It's more like an accessory at this point. Now if you had a gaming computer, you definitely want to have a lot of fans. Sometimes some people like to use it as like an accessory. Other times people use it to really cool down their computers. Okay, that's in. I'm gonna wrap this around here. That way it's not in the way. Now you can do this much better than how I'm doing it, which is by doing a lot of cable management, which takes a lot of time, but it's more of a personal preference. So I'm just going to put this in a couple different places, if I can. Okay, looks like I can't. So I believe that this PCI is what goes into your graphics card. But for this particular graphics card, it doesn't have any little 6 pins in it, which makes this just useless. So it makes this cord really useless. So what we're going to do is just stuff it at the bottom and stuff all these other cords in the bottom too. Now if you have zip ties, definitely use them. Now that way you can cable management. And now for this, what we're going to do is put this in. Sometimes you do have to apply a little pressure to it just to push it in. And this is, by the way, your Wi-Fi adapter, for just in case you guys do not have a Wi-Fi chip that comes with your motherboard. So for just in case, definitely have one of these on hand. So hard to put in from this ankle kit. I want to take the graphics card out because this is in the way. All right, so now we remove that. Go ahead and put this in, put it down here. Make sure it's in, then you just push it in. Now that's in there, you want to tighten that up. And then we're going to put the graphics card back inside. I dropped it. Is this the right one? Yeah, this is. Nope, it's not tight there. Put that on, unlatch it, and you gotta hook it on. Once you're able to hook it on, you get to push it in. There you go, it just snaps into place. Now to tighten this thing up, then we're gonna move on to my PC. Go. There we go. And now where this Wi-Fi extension is going to go, which will be this. So go down here into the USB spot. Actually, yep, in the USB spot. Upside down and put it inside. Is this the wrong way? It is. Okay, there we go. So now that's in. Now we just gotta hook it up with power. So I'm just gonna close the back up. Ugh. Then we're all set. Yeah, it does look messy back here, but that's all right. That's all right. It's not like bulging out of the case either, which is perfectly fine. And for this part, just put these little screws in. They're special screws. So for this case, it has these screws on it. Tighten the back up. There we go. And go ahead and put this part back on. There it is. And this just to close up these screws. That's why I wasn't able to put in the that's why I wasn't able to put in the Wi-Fi adapter, because I didn't take this off. It just screws on. You just use your fingers for this. Goes on top, and then you're all good. So, this is the PC. I didn't put the glass one yet, but here it is for now. Looks really nice. But we're gonna leave this like this because my mom's wants to put lights in it, and I'm gonna let her put lights in it. That way she can have her little fun with it. So we're gonna put this on the side and put the glass back on, and then we're all set. So when putting on the glass, you want to be real careful because again, it's tempered glass. And for certain cases, you don't want glass. You really don't want a full glass case because they tend to keep all the heat in, and heat is bad for your PC. So what I have right here, this is considered a mesh computer case, and that helps airflow greatly. So just having like this little piece of glass is fine, but if it's like glass on top of these fans and everywhere else, then yeah, that's a big no-no. Don't want to tighten that too tight, and for this particular case, it actually has rubber backs on the screws. That way it doesn't damage the glass, which is just a absolutely great touch. Okay, there we go. Now to start up a PC, I will turn that into a different video. So tune in for next time on that one.